Hello, this is Jeff Kupiecki, CEO of Power Inbox, and I appreciate everyone taking the time today to join us on our topic, email personalization that pushes the envelope on the open. We are going to just wait a minute to make sure people can hear. Okay. Hopefully there's some feedback to know that people can hear me okay. All right. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Jeff Kupiecki. I'm the CEO of Power Inbox. And thank you for taking the time to join us today as we discuss email personalization that pushes the envelope on the open. By way of background, our company, Power Inbox, is involved in helping clients achieve better engagement and CTR using email. And I'll make sure to focus at the end on some of our capabilities. But the real opportunity today is to help anybody who's joined us on the phone here to understand how you can very easily use personalization to better improve your email program. I'll first talk a bit about how email lags behind the web and how it needs to be even more relevant today. Then we'll talk about how you can take some very specific tips to personalize the content that you send to your users today in your program. And we'll focus on real-time data, segment data, and behavioral data as all three ways to help you personalize the content. And then we'll have 4 specific tips that you can walk away today and start to begin to personalize and improve your emails with your users. We'll talk about trying something new, how to easily get content, optimizing your content, and then ultimately collecting more information about your users. Finally, we'll give you some very specific what to do today so you can walk away with something very tactical, and then we'll summarize with key takeaways. As I understand it, we have about 45 minutes together, and there is an online chat if you'd like to submit questions, and I have a colleague here who will be able to let me know of those questions if you have any that I can address. Let's start with how does email compare with the rest of the internet? Yesterday, as I was beginning to prepare for this, I figured let's see how other platforms handle who I am and knowing how to personalize my content. I open up my Twitter stream, and right away they see what I've been a fan of the ESPN, so I'm seeing information about the finals. I'm seeing real-time information that's very relevant, and it's unique for me. So I feel like that you're able to see the content directly that would be relevant to me. Similarly, when I open up Facebook, I find content there that's interesting and that's relevant to me. They know that I'm following ESPN. They know obviously who my friends are. They know all the context that would make it interesting for me to know that this is content that I'd be interested in. Finally, if I log into the website for ESPN, I'm able to see the same information now customized to my interests. I see our favorites, the teams that I follow. I know it's updated in real time, and it's curated, so I'm only seeing the content that would be relevant to me. In fact, we almost take for granted the idea that we're able to see all the information when we go to these other platforms that's unique to us, and therefore more likely that we're going to follow. I apologize, it sounds like we might have a connection issue. I'll just verify here that you guys are seeing my screen, and then we'll continue the discussion. So my apologies. All right. So we've talked about how on social media type tools or even websites, it's very easy to see how relevant content can be. But email, unfortunately, for many of us, is not like that. First of all, it's static. Nothing moves, nothing kind of jumps out at you to capture your attention. Generally, the same people get the same message, and it's batch and blast. Whereas we like to talk to clients, it's spray and pray. Generally, people think about desktop first, but now you have to understand that over 50% of emails are being opened up on mobile devices, and you want to think mobile first when it comes to creating your emails. A lot of times, emails are created manually. People are thinking about the content sitting around a table to select what they show to each user, and that results in limited personalization. The challenge for all of us is that now email represents a much larger share of how we're trying to communicate with our end users, but we are falling behind because so many other companies are using the same medium. So your average consumer is now getting more email than they ever have, and the pressure to stand out is even greater. In fact, our research shows that over 50% of emails are opened up on mobile, but a fully 1/3 of them are deleted in the first 2 seconds. So if you're not able to make something dynamic to stand out, you won't be relevant. Now, why is email, though, relevant? And we all know this, which is why we're taking the time to talk about it, is that it is the most used medium between a company and its end user. Obviously, 1/3 of the people in the world use email today. It's now close to 200 billion emails sent a day. And even if you kind of listen to folks that say, yeah, our children don't use email as a communication mechanism, we always say, okay, great, now have them open up a credit card or a bank account, and now let's see which is their preferred medium to talk to a company. In fact, most companies, when they look at their marketing mix and they compare social or search or web to email, email has the highest ROI. And probably the best metric to know that people are committed to email is that every client that we speak with is planning to send more email this year than last and more email next year than this year. The challenge, though, is not about getting the emails delivered. The challenge now is how to make sure that the emails are engaged with. How do you make sure that the content is something that people are interested in clicking through on and going through to your message? So let's talk about that. What is personalization? Many of us are familiar with the batch and blast. The question is, how do we get from there to true personalization? The opportunity for us to actually target the user based on what we know about their context. We know where they are, what device they're on, what their click history was. And we want to combine all that to get to a message that is relevant to that user at that moment in time. How do we do that? Well, there's 3 different ways we think about personalization. The first is what I call real-time data. This might be the easiest thing to use to make your emails more relevant and personalized. Because what it takes into account is the context where your user is when they open the email. Do you know where they are, what device they're on, or what else is happening at the same time? And leveraging all that allows you to change the content. Let me use some specific examples to illustrate the point. We have a travel client that has different offers based on where in the country you are. If we know that you're on the West Coast, we want to show you offers that are relevant to the West Coast. Now, in the past, many people have used what's in the database to identify the location of a user. Now think about this. If a user is registered in Los Angeles, but we happen to see them now outside of their home market, they're using real-time data now to change the travel offers based on knowing the person is out of market. So if they're in Los Angeles, they show them destinations outside. If they're traveling, they show them only destinations in the travel city that we identify them in. Or here's another example using device. We have a client, HBO, that promotes their HBO Now service, which is only supported on a specific set of platforms, iPhone, Amazon, Android. So if you're on one of those platforms, the best use case for you would be to go directly into the app. If you're on a different platform, they need to give you a different call to action. Since when they send the email, they don't know what platform you'll be on, the system has to be dynamic to change the content based on the device. And that's exactly what we're doing with them. And then finally, real-time data. For all those on the e-commerce side, this will sound familiar. Remember all the times we send out email and the product is out of stock, or the pricing changes, or there might be a more popular item that you'd rather lead with. With real-time content, you can change that offer up to the point at which somebody opens the email. So all these are examples of how you can change the content very easily for an end user based on their context. You can enhance that further, though, by using first-party data. Most of us have in our database segment-type information. We know what the age or gender or maybe purchase history. you might have active or inactive users. Knowing that can allow you to change the content based on that segment. In many situations, it's as simple as using a merge tag from your ESP to change the content for an end user. And I'll show you some examples of that with the NFL in just a second. And then finally, our ability to show personalized click history, which is really the end point of getting to one-to-one marketing on email. Imagine you had a user that consistently showed you what he or she is interested in based on what they clicked on. Wouldn't it be great to change the content you show that individual that would be directly relevant to which items they've clicked on? And then knowing what they've clicked on allows you to more and more personalize or make the content more targeted. So if you think about it, personalization is about leveraging all three of these data inputs in order to make the content as relevant as possible. Now let's use an example. Wiley Publishing, which is the publishers of Dummies Guides, has an email that goes out to all their end users. And in that email, there's an opportunity to show content that's specific to your user. Let's use an example. Jordan here is somebody that Wiley knows a little bit about. They know his gender, his age, what his interests are, mountains and information about tents, and that he's interested in technology. That's all data that they have in their database. Though we also know about Jordan that he happens to be opening up an email right now on an iOS device based in Denver. And we also happen to know what he's previously clicked on, so we know what his history is. Using all three sources, we can make 4 specific content recommendations that we think are most relevant to Jordan. And obviously the contrast there would be Karen, who is getting the same email, but obviously has a very different profile. Besides having a different age and gender, her interests are different, her click history is different, and obviously the device and the platform that she on and the location that she is in is also different. So Karen should see different content. And over time, as you can imagine, we learn more about the preferences of each of these users because we are showing them different content. So by using the same template and just a small piece of code here that allows us to change the content on the open, we can make the content for Karen much more relevant to her and make it different than what we showed to Jordan. Now let's kind of walk through an example. We've been fortunate to work with the organization, National Football League, for the last 2 seasons. And as part of that, we've been able to walk through a set of examples to illustrate this point about how you can personalize. I'll just walk through some examples here. When we started working with them, we had the ability to show a live ticker that would show real-time news. Now, for fans of the NFL, especially very active ones, they generally know exactly what they're interested in and what's been happening in the league. But what they might not know is what's happened in the last hour. So getting a real-time feed of information was interesting. We also help the league. They have 32 teams. Therefore, instead of creating 32 different use cases, what they have instead is one template, and every team sees content that's specific to their team based on geo-targeting. We then enhanced that and said, you know what, there's content that we think is interesting to users based on, let's say, their gender or their age or their team. So the NFL uses our platform to change which advertisement, this is their promotional content, they show inside the email. And where they've continued to innovate is to say we can personalize the content as well. You're probably all familiar with the Dear John kind of salutation, but imagine creating content that's integrated into the personalization for the user. In this case, the NFL has a program where they have a newborn fan who gets certificates and a billboard with their name on it. That becomes something that can scale for them because as every newborn gets registered, they get a unique email with their name and their team directly inside that email. Where they're going is to leverage all these tools, the personalization based on first-party data, real-time data, and click history to make their email very dynamic. What I'd like to do now is show you that example. So you can see now the live example. I mentioned the latest news. This is team-specific content. They have the ability to show then personalized images. video playing, and I'll show you some more examples of that, live Twitter, live Instagram, team-specific news, and ultimately even a poll that can be interactive inside the email. When you put all that together, the result is some very, very good personalization and higher CTR. What the NFL learned from working with us is that primarily their content was geared towards their largest demographic, obviously males 35 and above, and they were getting a disproportionate share of the number of clicks. Whereas what they really wanted to do was leverage the information that they learned about their users, i.e. what is interesting to a female fan or maybe a younger fan, and then boost the amount of clicks that they're getting from those demographics. And the content that's now being shared with their users is doing exactly that. So now we've shown you an example of how you can personalize content. Let's get very specific now on steps you can take to better personalize your email. And we'll walk through with some examples from live clients that we serve to help illustrate each of the points. So the first is, let's try something new. You know, many times we hear from clients, email is all about don't break yesterday's email. And we understand, given how important it is to the marketing efforts of a company, that you don't want to take a lot of risk. But at the same time, you have to do something different to capture your user's attention. Again, thinking about that first 2 seconds, how do you capture their attention to make it likely that they're going to pay attention to your message? So we encourage clients to do something different, take some risk. In the case of Disney and ABC, what they did was create a pop-up window inside the email. Now, before you say, well, that seems very aggressive, think about the opportunity. Most times, people kind of glaze over when they see a regular email. Imagine instead having the ability to have a call to action that's specific to your users, that could even be changed based on real time, and the user can either interact with that pop-up, or they can close it and see the underlying email. In the case of ABC and Dancing with the Stars, they saw an 85% increase in conversion by using this feature. It's not hard to set up, and it goes to that immediate point about how do you engage users in something that's unique to them. This pop-up was also successfully demonstrated by companies like Priceline to promote their application, because what this allows you to do is to tailor the call to action, in this case, download the app, to the device that you're on. If you're on an iPhone, you go straight to iTunes. If you're on an Android device, you go straight to Google Play. And if you're on a device that doesn't support the pop-up or the application, you just see the regular underlying email. So in the context of trying something new, both these organizations saw very good results by just trying something new like a pop-up. Now, I showed you with the NFL that you can have content that's dynamically streaming. Here's another way to think about dynamic and personalized content inside an email with, again, using our friends from Priceline. Priceline's challenge, as many of you can recognize, is when they promote a hotel. Let's take the example of Las Vegas for $17. Sure, we know those are no longer available as soon as you click through. So how do they take the real-time information, that's what we talked about earlier about the first step, the personalized content, and make that relevant to the end user? Well, the way they've done that is we have a set of dynamic images, in this case a carousel, of showing which items to show to each user, where the pricing is updated in real time. What that's allowing us to do is to pull a real-time feed of pricing specific to the lowest cost hotel in that city, and then present that to the user on the open. The benefits now is the user is getting a match between a hotel that actually has that price. They're actually seeing more content than they normally would with just static images. And by having it all updated on the open, they can actually change which hotels they present to each user based on location. So back to combining this concept, we can see what users are clicking on based on their location, real-time data like prices, and the ability for them to also see what the users actually clicked on. People have asked us about kind of what are the results from this campaign. After I go through some examples, I'll be able to show you. But generally, our average, what we tell clients is you can expect 20 to 25% increase in CTR and click-through rates based on using dynamic and real-time content. And as you can imagine, the closer you get to making the content relevant to the user, the higher that number will be. Now, in the context of trying something new, let's use another example. Many of you have probably heard about doing video inside email, and there's been lots of debate about how best to do that. We believe, back to how do we make email more like social media, is let's take a page from Facebook. All of us know in the news feed that we open up every day, we see an autoplay video, generally without sound, on a loop that captures your attention. And the idea behind that then is to capture the user to want them to click to see more. So we've standardized that as a video and email solution to help make content more relevant. How do we do that? We place a dynamic video inside an email that can run on almost every single device. And that allows the user, no matter which device they use to open an email, to see content that's moving and relevant to them. And once the user says, I'm kind of interested in that, they're going to want to click through and learn more. In this case, Discovery used it to promote one of their shows, and we've seen that with lots of media clients like Showtime or HBO or others using that same concept. It's also used for companies like Edmund that combines video with real-time content like Twitter, where you can update Twitter or Instagram or Facebook content automatically in real time inside your email. Or again, using that carousel approach where the content could be personalized to the user and shown dynamically on the open. I showed you the Priceline example with the pop-up. Now let's take it to the next level, which is how do you personalize that? Well, we're working with them to have a merge tag that would be a unique coupon code that could be placed in that pop-up. What that allows them to do now is take advantage of both items, something dynamic that's trying something new with something personalized, that being a merge tag that has a coupon code unique to that user, unique to that time. The print here is very small, but what you can see is that it expires at a particular date and time. You could leverage things like expiry dates with products like a countdown timer. You probably have been familiar with people using that, but countdown timers could also be used to change the content itself. So imagine if you wanted to personalize content to knowing what time it is. We have an example from a company that does events that might be promoting weekend events. They send the email Friday afternoon. Once the Friday evening events are over, you would want someone who opens that email to now see a different event being promoted. And so they change out the Friday night events for the Saturday event or the Sunday event. So the user is always going to see something fresh and relevant in the content when they open the email. We like to kind of, as we say, eat our own dog food, and therefore we take advantage in our email program with these same notions of trying something new and trying to be more relevant. And if I can now, I'll show you a quick example from our own innovative marketing team, and that is this concept that we've developed around the bobblehead theme. For those of us who are familiar with our marketing efforts, you'll know that today we're actually presenting a set of distinguished email speakers by presenting their mini-me's at our booth. And what we use the bobblehead theme is to allow us to connect for people. How do we help people personalize content? Now, it turns out we do this in our own emailing in the following way. We take an image that we can animate, in this case, a male bobblehead figure, and we know based on the database that we have of whether or not a end user is male or female, so they'll see the appropriate gender for the email they receive. And then we add to it some just additional components, so we highlight what we want them to do. Give it a nod is our call to action, and you can see we added a lightning strike there, and all this is part of our platform to easily add that. We promote content we think they might find interesting, because part of our value proposition is we help folks not just have relevant content, but monetize that content as well. So always in our email, we have the ability to bring third-party content as a way to demonstrate more value to our senders. In our situation of trying something new, we didn't know if these bobbleheads would go over well or not. We're now actually getting requests from people that want their own mini-me. And if anybody out there today wants one as well, just email us at sales@powerinbox.com, and we'd be happy to set that up for you as well. Okay, so we've talked about doing something new. That is the first tip. Now let's move to the second. This one is an outgrowth of a very common refrain that we hear from clients. You know what, we love this dynamic stuff. We love putting more content in the email, but it takes us 4 weeks to get new content into our email. We're so strapped for resources, we don't have enough designers to design what we need. I'm sure that sounds familiar to many of you in the audience. And the question is, how do you avoid that problem of getting relevant content? Well, the way we do that is we can actually scrape the content directly from a website, and you get the following advantage. You get the content being fresh and up to date, and you get the other advantage that this content has already been blessed by all the different internal QA that would require sign-off to make sure it can go inside your email. We've been fortunate to work with Toys R Us on this very use case, and now let me show you kind of what that looks like. So Toys R Us had a challenge. It takes them a significant amount of time to actually get content inside their email that's been approved. So what we've done is on their website, they actually have new offers every day that their marketing team works on for, obviously, given the enormous reach that they get from their website. Back to their website being relevant to time, you'll never see an outdated promotion. But email is more static. So we're connecting the real-time aspect of their web and putting it automatically inside their email. Now their offers are always updated inside the email. And you see that with kind of content that we're showing here inside the email. We have clients that also have access to product feeds or content feeds. Any which way that we can get the content automatically, we can help do that and avoid having to manually cut images, cut the HTML, and add that back into your newsletter. So we've talked about ways to try something new. We've talked about ways to get content. Now the key question is, how do you optimize that? And this is where we are so excited about the email platform being a great way to learn and optimize. Let's take a specific example. Let's say you have 2 segments, male and female, and you're not sure what content each of them prefer. Most folks will say, okay, create 2 segments, send half your emails to one and half to the other. The challenge, as many of you know, is that you already might have 2 or 3 segments based on frequency of send, or based on their active rate, or maybe some other A/B test you're running. Wouldn't it be great if you could send the same email and just add to the content that you're showing a flag for that segment to know whether or not they opened and if they clicked? Using optimization, you would then get real-time feedback on which of your segments prefer which content. Then that would allow you to feed that back into which content you show to each segment more often. And that's exactly what we've done with another client, Sephora, which I'll show you now their example. They have a tremendously long catalog of lots of different content. As you can imagine, they have a very wide catalog of products. They've got a lot of different calls to action. And ultimately, what they're trying to do is find what's the best match for content to their user to get them back to their website. In the example I'm showing here, we're taking new arrivals, which is a specific type of content from their website, and we're automatically creating this stripe based on updated information on their website. We then look at the click history for these items, and we start to change the sort order and even which items we take from the website based on the popularity of that item. So if it turns out more people are clicking on the let's find one that I can relate to, the fragrance kit, then they're going to show that more often. Or if it's a cleaning treatment, they're going to see that more often. In fact, we've actually been working with them on a very innovative way to use personalization, where we're matching the product that they show with real-time information like the weather outside. So imagine getting an email that tells you that because it's humid outside, here's some anti-frizz product for your hair. Or if we know it's going to be cold outside, here are some lipstick choices that would be appropriate for the climate outside. That's a way to leverage both the optimization around the content selection with the actual click history and the context of what the user is in when they open the email to be more likely to be relevant. And as you can imagine, the results are fantastic because now the content is not just dynamic, not just fresh, but also now much more relevant to that end user. So we've talked about 3 tips so far: trying something new, getting content automatically, optimizing. But now the 4th one, we hear many times, well, we don't know enough about our user. Is there a way to use real-time content and really push the envelope to understand more about our users? And that's the key thing about it. How does email become a tool for discovery? How do you learn more about your users by sending them email and therefore making it more dynamic? So here are a couple of examples now I'm going to demonstrate for you of how you can easily learn more about your users. Let's start with one from Brighton Charms. Like many folks that send email, you're constantly thinking about there's got to be a lot of content we could put into this email in order for us to see what they like. Unfortunately, usually it's, well, we know what they didn't like because they deleted the email. We don't know what they actually did like because they only clicked, very few percentage of people clicked on it. So we have one use case here. We call it the tabs interface that allows an end user to click inside the email and see different content. What the customer is now getting is the ability to try 3 different creatives, all with the user interacting with the content live inside the email. The benefit of that is we're seeing now which items people like, and we're giving more choice to the user. But even more subtly, we're having the user participate in the discovery process by giving us a click or two to see what they really like. And obviously, those clicks could then be added to the profile for the user to know information that we would collect for the next file. We've taken this further. This is actually a demo for Amazon. They're not a client. But we've taken this further in what we call Tinder for email, or also colloquially known as hot or not. This concept of discovery, and ask the user, just tell us, do you like this image or not? And if the user says, no, I'm going to skip it, we give them another one. If they hit skip it, we give them another one, etc. Until the user selects learn more, they'll get different options. Now, the real beauty, though, of this template is now Amazon will learn the preferences for their users of the 4 or 5 items they didn't like, and then based on the one they did like, they will likely see a higher CTR as well. So we're combining personalized content, real-time information, and now user engagement or click behavior to get a better concept of what that user actually likes. And obviously, all that data could be added into the user's profile, so the next send is more relevant to that user as well. And the final, actually 2 other examples. Again, let's say you don't have segment information and you want to make your sign-up process so easy that maybe after they give you their email address, one of the initial welcome emails could be a way to get more information. Here's an example from PureWow where with a drop-down list, you can see the age range, the income, and the gender. 3 very specific pieces of information that every marketer would want to have in their file with an end user. All 3 of those are asked in a dynamic form inside the email. Now, you might be saying, how is that possible that you can do that type of thing inside an email? And the reality is it's not 100% of the email client, but what we've done with all our experimentation and practice is we know exactly which clients support this and which ones don't, and every email client will have the appropriate visual of what it supports. Many of our clients, we probably will see about 70% will see this example, and therefore we can collect that data. And the final example of how you can collect personalized information or segment-based information is just a simple survey inside the email. So imagine being able to kind of decide which items somebody is interested in and have them give you that data. In our research, Having a user engage, even on a single click, makes a huge difference, not just to your click-through rate, but future email campaigns, because now that user is much more engaged and much more likely to interact with you. Now, does it work? We talked earlier about why do people want to do this, and the reality is it extremely is effective. We see double-digit increases in CTR for dynamic or real-time campaigns compared to static campaigns. Some of our clients even see as high as 40%. And it's not just the CTR that's higher, it's the actual revenue that's generated. For many of our clients, they'll be able to show directly the ROI from having more clicks and more relevant content in the form of more sales or more content being consumed on their website, which drives their bottom line. So now we've talked about ways to personalize content. I've shown you lots of different things, but you're saying, well, I know I'm going to have to call these guys and have to work with them. So let's do some tips today that you don't have to use us, but you can actually directly learn more about how you can actually improve your emails. The first is adding a pixel for insights. And what I talk about that is that sometimes your email could be the same that you use today, but what you really want to do is learn more about who your users are before you even change the content. This is our reporting interface, so you can see very easily graphically who opened, who clicked, over what period of time. You can see that by email client, so you know actually which are desktop versus mobile. You know within mobile which are iPhone or Android or other. You know the ability to show clients within, let's say, desktop or webmail. You can then geographically show where the clicks are happening or where the opens are happening and drill down by state, or if you have a worldwide distribution, even to find out exactly how many clicks were happening in the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, or within Africa. We also give the ability to kind of measure clicks per device, clicks versus dynamic or static, and within a slider, let's say, the clicks by position. There's also the ability to track time in email and know how long a user has spent interacting with your content. So sometimes the first step for personalization is just learning more about what your users like today. The second tip I'd say is just create 2 segments for the same piece of content and start reporting on the open rate and click-through rate by that segment. If the content is more relevant for one segment, then you know that that's going to be something more interesting and more likely to be clicked on. Use something new, a video, a pop-up, a timer, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, a lightning strike. Anything that looks like it's going to capture someone's attention is a great way to get more engagement and more likely to get somebody's attention. Use a personalized image. These things are extremely easy to set up, and it makes an easy way for you to actually show a user something that's relevant to them. If I can, I'll just quickly show you how that would look if you wanted to create your own customized image. You'd be able to kind of do that using a tool that allows you to just kind of add a merge tag onto an existing image. When all else fails, if it's okay, I'll promote ourselves. You can always just email us at sales@powerinbox.com, and that's another way for you to obviously get a free demonstration of how you could personalize content. Okay, let's move to summary. So what are the key takeaways that hopefully you got from today's webinar? The first is, don't be daunted by personalization. Personalization doesn't always mean every single user gets unique content. It could be as simple as saying, I'm going to create different groups of my users and they'll get different content. And to expand on that, that segmentation could be done based on objective criteria, like what device is the user on. We see a correlation in our data between those people who use iPhone versus those people on desktop, or those people that are on Android versus iOS. And knowing that data can change the content that you show to each of those groups. Or geographic segmentation, or segmentation based on what time somebody opens the email. You might promote different items if it's the evening hours than if you know it's the morning hours. And we see that especially for retail clients, that makes a lot of sense to change the content that they show. So personalization is easy, and you should definitely start and try and use that. Now, getting content can also be solved because there are tools to scrape or to leverage feeds in order to bring that content inside email. The simplest example is leveraging something that already exists. Let's take your Instagram content. If you are actively managing an Instagram feed, why not use those images in your email? They're always fresh, they're always updated, and you don't have to do any work to put them inside the email. Same thing with Twitter content or Facebook. If you've got content on your website that's dynamic, why not scrape that and put that inside your email? In fact, you can get lots of different content using the dynamic tools that we showed you. Again, as a review, you're able to see things like sliders or carousels or RSS feeds, all using dynamic ways to present the content. The fourth thing that I wanted you to take away is that it's actually very easy to try this out. Using an organization like ours, the setup would be only one time in nature. Then you can just set and forget, and you see the benefits with each send that you do. Our company offers both self-service and full-service options to leverage personalization and to find content that's more relevant. The last thing, obviously, is just try something new today. If nothing else, experiment, and you'll see some great results. In summary, I just want to again reiterate that Power Inbox is a company that many folks have used in the past to leverage our ability to help them both make content relevant and unique to their user. We're fortunate to work with brands like these that you're seeing on the screen, and we'd very much appreciate the opportunity to work with those here on the call today. Your call to action to reach us is very simple. It's just sales@powerinbox.com. And as an incentive for those who took the time to participate today, we can offer the following. If you would like a unique corporate signature where you have your Twitter live on every email that you send out, we will offer you that for free just by emailing us to sales@powerinbox and saying, get me my Twitter signature. And we'll follow up directly with that product. At this point, I'll turn it over to the chat and see if there are any questions that I can address. And I thank everybody again for participating today on the webinar. So some folks asked about pricing. We're happy to kind of arrange for a custom quote for you. We have clients that are using this on a campaign basis, so their commitment and their, if you will, contract there starts very, very low. Generally, you should expect to spend less than 20% of what you're spending with your ESP to get this great boost in CTR. Another question I had was whether or not this works with their specific ESP. Our technology works with any ESP. Some have already been integrated. If you're using a company like Blue Hornet or PostUp or Zeta or Epsilon Harmony, you'll find that these products are embedded already within your platform, but the technology is agnostic to ESP and can work with any of them. Another question I had was whether or not we help monetize email. They've seen stuff on our website. So we leverage personalization for the benefit of media companies who wish to put third-party advertising inside their email, because it's a great example of how we can actually make content personalized. And so if you're looking as a way to make money, you can leverage this same technology by personalizing content and then receiving revenue back as a revenue share with advertisers that want access to your users in your existing template. There was a question about how email works in Outlook, and obviously Outlook has certain limitations that the majority of email clients don't have. For example, animated GIFs do not play in Outlook, or Outlook doesn't allow for certain dynamic components. So what I suggest is on Twitter, for example, you can see that the tweets will be updated, but you will only see one at a time. If you want to see an example of this, you can email me at demo, D-E-M-O, @powerinbox.com. We have an autoresponder that will show you an example of Twitter inside the email, and you'll see how that renders on Outlook versus other email clients. And of course, if you want a more specific answer, just email us at sales@PowerInbox, and we're happy to address that for you. Another question that I got is, we don't have a lot of resources, and it's very hard for us to kind of try new things. I suggest just give us a call. We have a very deep bench of folks that understand email very well, and you never know, you might be able to get a campaign where we do all the work, and all you have to do is hit send. So the question came through on when images are not loaded automatically. This technology does require where images are turned on. Interesting enough, for those who might not be aware of this, most opens that your ESP tracks are only based when images are turned on. So there isn't a lot of technology to do dynamic content when images are not enabled, but we're seeing more and more the trend where email clients, including Gmail, make the default images turned on. And unfortunately, those where they're off, we never know that they open the email to begin with. Okay, I believe we've reached the time limit here. Again, I want to thank everybody for participating. You can reach me directly at jeff@powerinbox.com. We can interact with you at sales@powerinbox.com. And definitely don't be shy to ask us for your custom Twitter signature, or if we can give you a free evaluation of how you can use personalization in your existing emails today. I want to thank everybody for their time and wish everybody the best for the rest of their day.